She was just the new girl everyone ignored. They taught her how to serve coffee and check seatbelts like she knew nothing. But when the plane's engines failed at 37,000 feet, she walked into the cockpit and said a call sign that made the F-22 fighter pilots go silent with shock. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Sarah Chen walked into the crew briefing room at Los Angeles International Airport wearing her brand new flight attendant uniform. Everything was perfect, her hair tied back neatly, her badge shining, her shoes polished. She was nervous, like any new employee on their first month of work. The other crew members barely looked at her. They had seen dozens of new hires come and go. To them, Sarah was just another trainee who would need help with everything. Someone who might forget procedures, someone who would ask too many questions. "Good morning," Sarah said with a bright smile. A few people nodded. Most ignored her. They were busy with their pre-flight checks and conversations about weekend plans. Captain Michael Torres sat at the front of the room reviewing the flight plan. He was 52 years old with gray hair and 30 years of flying experience. Next to him sat First Officer Lisa Park, a confident woman in her 40s who had flown for 15 years. The senior flight attendant, Jennifer Walsh, sat down beside Sarah. She was a kind woman in her 50s who had been flying for 25 years. "Okay, sweetie," Jennifer said in a motherly voice. "Today we're flying to Seattle. It's a simple route. Just follow my lead and you'll be fine. Remember to smile at passengers, check the seatbelts, and don't worry if you make mistakes. Everyone does on their first few flights." Sarah nodded politely. "Thank you. I'll do my best." Jennifer patted her hand. "I'm sure you will, dear. Just stay calm and ask if you need help." Sarah smiled. She didn't tell Jennifer that staying calm under pressure was something she knew very well. She didn't mention that she had faced situations far more stressful than serving coffee at 35,000 feet. Captain Torres stood up and reviewed the flight details. Flight 2847 to Seattle, flying time approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes. Weather looks good. We have 278 passengers today. Let's make it a smooth flight. Everyone nodded. Sarah listened carefully, taking mental notes. The passengers began boarding at 9:30 a.m. Sarah stood near the business class section, greeting everyone with warm smiles. "Welcome aboard. Let me help you with that bag. Your seat is right over there, sir." Jennifer watched her carefully, ready to jump in if Sarah made any mistakes. But Sarah handled everything smoothly. She was professional, friendly, and efficient. Still, Jennifer couldn't help but give extra instructions. "Remember, Sarah, when we serve drinks, always ask if they want ice. And make sure the hot coffee isn't too full, or it might spill during turbulence." "Got it," Sarah said patiently. The other flight attendants, Marcus and Diana, also watched Sarah with that look. The look that said, "She's new, so she probably doesn't know what she's doing." Nobody knew the truth. Nobody knew that Sarah had once made decisions in split seconds that saved lives. Nobody knew that her call sign was famous among military pilots. Nobody knew that she could fly aircraft that most people only saw in movies. She was just the new girl. At 10:15 a.m., Flight 2847 pushed back from the gate. The massive Boeing 777 began rolling toward the runway. Sarah completed her safety demonstration in the aisle, showing passengers how to use seatbelts and oxygen masks. Jennifer stood nearby, watching to make sure Sarah did everything correctly. The engines roared. The plane accelerated down the runway and lifted smoothly into the sky. Los Angeles disappeared beneath the clouds. Sarah walked through the cabin, checking seatbelts and helping passengers get comfortable. It was routine work. Simple work, work that hid who she really was. 90 minutes into the flight, everything was peaceful. Passengers were reading, watching movies, and sleeping. The crew was preparing to serve lunch. Sarah was in the galley helping Marcus organize meal trays when it happened. A loud metallic explosion shook the entire plane. The aircraft shuddered violently. Passengers screamed. Bags fell from overhead compartments. Coffee cups flew through the air. Sarah grabbed the counter to steady herself. Her training, her real training, kicked in immediately. She knew that sound. She knew what it meant. Engine failure, catastrophic failure. Captain Torres's voice came over the intercom, trying to sound calm. Ladies and gentlemen, we've experienced a minor technical issue. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. Everything is under control. But Sarah could hear the tension in his voice. And the plane's violent shaking told her that nothing was under control. Jennifer rushed into the galley, her face pale. What was that? Engine trouble, Sarah said calmly. We need to secure the cabin. Marcus and Diana appeared, both looking frightened. Passengers were panicking, shouting questions, some crying. Everyone stay calm. Jennifer called out, but her own voice was shaking. Sarah moved through the aisle with steady confidence. Please return to your seats. Fasten your seatbelts tightly. Everything will be okay. Something in her voice made people listen. She projected calm authority without even thinking about it. In the cockpit, Captain Torres and First Officer Park were facing their worst nightmare. The instrument panel was lit up like a Christmas tree, red warning lights everywhere. The number 2 engine had exploded, destroying critical systems. Hydraulic pressure was dropping. Backup systems were failing. This isn't possible, Lisa Park whispered, staring at the controls. We're losing everything. Captain Torres tried to stabilize the plane, but the controls felt wrong. Mushy, unresponsive. The plane began rolling to the right. Torres pulled hard on the controls, but nothing happened the way it should. Denver Center, this is Flight 2847, Lisa transmitted. We have a major emergency. Engine failure with multiple system failures. We need immediate vectors to the nearest airport. Flight 2847, Roger. We're clearing Colorado Springs Airport for you. F-22 fighters are being scrambled from Buckley Air Force Base to provide assistance. Fighters? Torres looked confused. What can fighters do? They'll provide visual assessment of your damage, sir. Torres nodded grimly and fought with the controls. The plane was descending. They were losing altitude fast. 2 sleek F-22 Raptor fighters appeared off the plane's right wing. They looked like sharks, deadly, fast, and powerful. Flight 2847, this is Striker 1, a calm male voice said over the radio. We're here to help. Requesting permission to move in close and assess your damage. Permission granted, Torres said. The lead F-22 slid underneath the damaged airliner. The pilot, Major Kyle Stevens, looked up at the destroyed engine and felt his stomach drop. Flight 2847, your damage is severe. The entire engine is gone. I see fluid leaking from multiple locations. Your hydraulic lines are destroyed. The second F-22, piloted by Captain Amanda Richardson with call sign Striker 2, moved to the other side. I confirm extensive damage, she reported. You've got fires and debris. This is bad. Captain Torres felt sweat dripping down his face. We're losing control. The plane isn't responding properly. What's your current status? Major Stevens asked. We can barely keep it level. We're descending. I don't think we can make it to Colorado Springs. In the cabin, passengers were crying and praying. Some were calling loved ones. Children were screaming. Jennifer rushed to the cockpit and knocked urgently. Lisa Park opened the door. Captain, the passengers are terrified. Jennifer said. Torres turned to look at her. His face was gray. Tell them to prepare for emergency landing. Tell them to get in brace position. Jennifer's eyes went wide. Are we going to crash? Torres didn't answer. He didn't have to. His expression said everything. Jennifer stumbled back into the cabin, tears forming in her eyes. How could she tell almost 300 people they were about to die? Jennifer stood frozen in the aisle, unable to speak. Passengers were looking at her, waiting for instructions, waiting for hope. Sarah appeared beside her and placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Jennifer, listen to me, Sarah said quietly but firmly. Have Marcus and Diana move everyone into brace position. Prepare the emergency exits. I need to talk to the pilots. Jennifer looked at her in confusion. You. But you're just. Trust me, Sarah said. Something in her eyes, something strong and certain, made Jennifer step aside. Sarah walked to the cockpit and knocked firmly. Who is it? Captain Torres shouted. Sarah Chen. I need to come in. I have emergency experience that can help. What? You're a flight attendant. We don't have time for. Captain, I'm a retired Air Force pilot. Let me in. Now. There was a moment of stunned silence. Then Lisa Park unlocked the door. Sarah entered the cockpit and immediately scanned the instrument panel. Her eyes moved quickly, reading every gauge, every warning light, every system status. Captain Torres stared at her. What did you just say? I'm a retired combat pilot, Captain. I've flown special operations missions. I've recovered damaged aircraft using techniques that aren't in any commercial manual. Tell me your status. Torres was too shocked to argue. We've lost hydraulics. The controls barely respond. We're descending and I can't stop it. We have maybe 10 minutes before we hit terrain. Sarah's mind was already calculating. She looked at the fuel levels, the altitude, the control surface indicators. Have you tried differential thrust steering? Yes, but it's not enough. What about manual reversion with asymmetric thrust management? Torres and Park exchanged glances. Those were military terms. Advanced military terms. Who are you? Torres whispered. Sarah met his eyes. Captain, I need to use the radio. I need to contact those F-22 pilots directly. Torres hesitated only a second, then gestured to the radio panel. Sarah picked up the microphone and switched to the military emergency frequency. Striker 1 and Striker 2, this is Phantom requesting tactical support under emergency combat recovery protocols. The radio went silent. Then Major Stevens's voice came back, filled with shock. Say again. Did you say, Phantom? Affirmative, Striker 1. This is Phantom. Service number 2-7-4-8-9, Delta. Last operational unit was 7th Special Operations Squadron. Requesting immediate tactical support. Another pause. Sarah could imagine Major Stevens frantically checking military databases. Then, Phantom, confirmed. Ma'am, this is an honor. What do you need? Captain Torres and First Officer Park were staring at Sarah like she had just grown wings. Who the hell are you? Torres breathed. Sarah turned to Captain Torres. Sir, I can try to save this aircraft. But I need you to trust me and give me control. The techniques I'll use will feel completely wrong to you. They'll violate everything you've learned in commercial aviation. But they work. I've done this before. Torres looked at the instrument panel. At the warning lights. At the altimeter showing they were dropping faster and faster. He looked at Lisa Park. She nodded slowly. If we keep doing what we're doing, we die, Park said quietly. Torres took a deep breath. Okay. The aircraft is yours. Sarah slid into the captain's seat. Her hands went to the controls with practiced familiarity. Striker 1, I need you positioned beneath us, providing real-time visual feedback on control surface movement. Striker 2, I need you scanning terrain ahead for possible landing sites. Roger, Phantom, Major Stevens said. Moving into position. Sarah began making small adjustments to the controls. Tiny movements combined with precise thrust changes. She was creating artificial stability using methods that didn't exist in commercial pilot training. What are you doing? Torres asked, watching in amazement as the plane's wild rolling motion began to decrease. I'm using differential forces to create dynamic equilibrium, Sarah explained. The damaged hydraulics can't provide normal control, so I'm balancing thrust against control surfaces in a way that creates stability. That's impossible, Park whispered. It shouldn't work, Sarah agreed. But it does. She transmitted to the F-22s, Striker 1, how does my right aileron look? Phantom, your right aileron is barely moving. Maybe 15% deflection. Copy, compensating with rudder and throttle. Sarah adjusted the controls. The plane steadied slightly. Striker 2, any landing sites? Captain Richardson's voice came back, Phantom, I see a valley about 35 miles ahead. It's flat and long. Not a runway, but it's your best option. Send me the coordinates. Numbers appeared on the navigation screen. Sarah studied them and began plotting an approach path in her mind. Captain Torres, First Officer Park, I need you both monitoring systems and calling out any changes. Can you do that? Both pilots nodded, too amazed to do anything but help. Sarah began turning the massive aircraft toward the valley. It should have been impossible with their level of damage. Normal flying techniques wouldn't work. But Sarah wasn't using normal techniques. She combined side-slip maneuvers with asymmetric thrust. She used the rudder in ways that commercial pilots never did. She created forces that balanced against each other, making the plane move where she wanted it to go. This is insane, Torres muttered, watching her work. This violates every principle of aerodynamics I know. Commercial aerodynamics, Sarah corrected. Combat damage recovery is different. When you're flying a fighter with half your controls shot away, you learn to use physics in creative ways. The plane shuddered and shook, but it was turning. Slowly, carefully, heading toward the valley. In the cabin, Jennifer made an announcement, everyone, please remain in brace position. We are attempting an emergency landing. Stay calm and follow all instructions. Passengers were crying, praying, holding hands. Some had given up hope. Others clung to faith. Marcus and Diana moved through the aisles, checking that everyone was properly positioned. They were terrified, but they did their jobs. Striker 1, I need constant altitude updates, Sarah transmitted. My instruments aren't reliable. Roger, Phantom. You're currently at 15,000 feet. Terrain below you is at 8,000. You've got 7,000 feet of clearance. Copy, beginning descent. Sarah reduced power and adjusted the nose angle. The plane began dropping toward the valley. Phantom, you're coming in fast, Major Stevens warned. I know. If I slow down too much, I'll lose what little control I have. Understood. The valley was approaching. Sarah could see it now through the windscreen, a long stretch of flat ground surrounded by mountains. Striker 2, any obstacles in that valley? Negative, Phantom. It's clear. Mostly dirt and grass. It'll be rough, but it's your best shot. Roger. Sarah was flying manually now, using every sense, every instinct, every skill she had gained through thousands of hours in the cockpit. 2,000 feet above terrain, Major Stevens called out. The plane was shaking violently. Alarms were blaring. Systems were failing one after another. 1,000 feet. Sarah extended partial flaps using the emergency backup system. It gave her a little more lift, a little more control. 500 feet. The ground was rushing up. Fast. Too fast. 300 feet. Sarah. Torres shouted. You're coming in too hot. I know. 200 feet. Sarah pulled back on the controls. The nose lifted slightly. 100 feet. She cut the power. The plane dropped. 50 feet. Everyone brace. Sarah shouted into the cabin microphone. The Boeing 777 hit the ground with tremendous force. The landing gear shattered. Metal screamed. The plane bounced, then slammed down again. Sarah fought to keep the wings level. She used every remaining bit of thrust, every control surface that still worked. The plane skidded across the dirt, throwing up massive clouds of dust. Pieces of metal flew off. The engines tore free from the wings. But Sarah kept it moving straight. Kept it from flipping, kept it from cartwheeling. 1,000 feet of sliding. 2,000 feet. Finally, the massive aircraft ground to a halt. For a moment, there was silence. Then Sarah's voice, calm and clear, evacuate. Everyone out, now. The emergency slides deployed. Passengers rushed toward the exits, sliding down to safety. Jennifer, Marcus, and Diana worked frantically, directing people, helping the injured, making sure everyone got out. Move. Keep moving. Get away from the plane. Smoke was rising from the wreckage. Small fires were starting. Captain Torres and First Officer Park stumbled out of the cockpit, still in shock. Everyone out? Torres asked. Counting now. Jennifer shouted. Sarah was the last one in the cabin. She moved through quickly, checking every seat, every row, making absolutely sure nobody was left behind. Clear, she shouted. She ran to the emergency exit and jumped onto the slide, landing in the dirt just as flames began spreading along the fuselage. The survivors scattered across the valley, running away from the burning wreck. And then they stopped. Turned around, counted. 278 passengers. 7 crew members. Everyone had survived. People began crying with relief. Hugging each other, laughing hysterically. Some collapsed to their knees. They were alive. Rescue helicopters arrived within 20 minutes. Emergency vehicles rolled across the valley floor. Paramedics spread out, treating injuries. Remarkably, most were minor, cuts, bruises, some broken bones. Nothing life-threatening. It was a miracle. Captain Torres found Sarah sitting on the ground, her uniform dirty and torn. He sat down beside her. I need to know, he said. Who are you really? Sarah looked at him. I told you. I'm a retired Air Force pilot. Phantom isn't just any call sign, is it? No. What does it mean? Sarah was quiet for a moment. It means I flew missions that officially never happened. In places we officially weren't. I developed recovery techniques for combat-damaged aircraft. I've brought back planes that shouldn't have made it home. Torres shook his head in wonder. Why are you working as a flight attendant? Sarah smiled. Because I love flying. I love being around planes and helping people. After I retired, I wanted to stay in aviation. This seemed like a good way. A peaceful way. You saved almost 300 lives today. We saved them. You trusted me when nothing made sense. That took courage. The F-22 fighters circled overhead one final time, then turned back toward their base. But first, Major Stevens transmitted one last message. Phantom, this is Striker 1. It was an honor flying with you. Every pilot in the Air Force knows your legend. Seeing you work today, that's something I'll never forget. Sarah picked up a radio from a nearby paramedic. Thank you, Striker 1. I couldn't have done it without you. Your eyes were my instruments. Your information saved us. Any time, ma'am, any time. News helicopters arrived. Reporters swarmed the scene. The story exploded across the media: mystery flight attendant saves 300 lives. But when reporters asked who had landed the plane, they got an impossible answer. She said her call sign was Phantom, Captain Torres told them. Aviation journalists recognized that name immediately. They searched military records and found limited information, most of it classified. But what they found was enough. The story went viral. The mystery pilot who saved Flight 2847. Phantom, the legend who hid in plain sight. She was just a flight attendant. Until she wasn't. Jennifer found Sarah at the hospital where survivors were being checked. "I'm so sorry," Jennifer said, tears streaming down her face. "I treated you like you didn't know anything. I was so condescending. And you're..." "I'm a flight attendant," Sarah said gently. "That's who I am now. Everything else is in the past. But you saved us all. We all did our jobs. You kept the cabin calm. Marcus and Diana helped evacuate everyone. Captain Torres trusted me when he had every reason not to. We all saved each other." Jennifer hugged her tightly. The airline's CEO came to meet Sarah personally. "Ms. Chen, I don't even know what to say. You've saved this airline from catastrophe. You've saved 300 lives. What can we do for you? Name anything." Sarah thought for a moment. "Can I keep my job?" The CEO blinked. "What?" "I like being a flight attendant. I like helping passengers. I like working with the crew. I'd like to continue, if that's okay." "You want to keep working as a flight attendant?" "Yes, sir." The CEO shook his head in amazement. "You're the most unusual hero I've ever met." Sarah smiled. "I'm not a hero. I just did what needed to be done." But the world disagreed. Major Kyle Stevens requested permission to meet Sarah in person. When they met at the hospital, he actually saluted her. "Ma'am, I studied your missions in advanced flight training. The things you accomplished, they changed how we think about aircraft recovery. You're a legend." "I was just doing my job, Major." "No, ma'am. You were doing the impossible. And today you did it again." Sarah did return to work as a flight attendant. But the airline also asked her to help develop new emergency training programs. She agreed. She taught pilots about thinking beyond standard procedures. About adapting to situations that exceeded their training, about trusting unconventional solutions when conventional methods failed. Captain Torres became one of her most dedicated students. "I want to learn everything you know," he told her. "You already know the most important thing," Sarah replied. "What's that?" "You knew when to ask for help. You knew when your training wasn't enough. You set aside your ego and trusted someone else. That's the hardest skill to learn." First Officer Park requested to fly with Sarah whenever possible. "I want to watch how you think," she said. Jennifer became Sarah's closest friend among the crew. "I'm never underestimating anyone again," she joked. "For all I know, the baggage handler is a retired Navy SEAL." The passengers from Flight 2847 organized a reunion. Almost everyone came. They wanted to thank the crew, especially Sarah. A woman with 2 children approached Sarah with tears in her eyes. "I was sure we were going to die," the woman said. "I was trying to be brave for my kids, but I was terrified. Then I heard your voice on the intercom. So calm, so certain. And I thought, maybe we'll be okay. Maybe this person knows what she's doing. You gave me hope when I had none." Sarah hugged her. "You were brave. Your children were brave. You all did exactly what you needed to do. A year later, a memorial was placed in the Colorado Valley where Flight 2847 had landed. The plaque read, "In this valley, on this day, 285 souls survived the impossible. Through skill, courage, and teamwork, disaster became miracle. In honor of Flight 2847 and all who brought them home." Sarah attended the dedication ceremony. Survivors came from across the country. Many brought their families. Captain Torres spoke, "We were minutes from death. Our training had failed. Our aircraft had failed. We had no options left." Then someone stepped forward who we had dismissed as inexperienced. Someone we had underestimated completely. She saved us all, not by being a hero, but by being excellent at what she did. She taught me that expertise can hide in unexpected places. That assumptions can blind us. That humility and trust can save lives. Major Stevens also spoke, "In the military, we study Phantom's missions. We analyze her techniques. We try to understand how she accomplished what seemed impossible. Today, I witnessed her legend in person. And I learned that true greatness isn't about seeking glory. It's about serving others, whatever form that service takes." When it was Sarah's turn to speak, she kept it simple. "We all saved each other that day. Every person on that plane contributed to our survival. The pilots who trusted me. The flight attendants who kept everyone calm. The passengers who followed instructions. The F-22 pilots who guided us down. The rescue teams who arrived so quickly. Survival isn't about individual heroics. It's about people working together when everything seems lost. That's the real lesson." Sarah continued working as a flight attendant. She flew regular routes, Los Angeles to Seattle, New York to Miami, Chicago to Denver. Most passengers never knew who she was. She liked it that way. Sometimes passengers would recognize her from news coverage. "Aren't you Phantom? The pilot who saved that plane?" Sarah would smile. "I'm Sarah. I'm your flight attendant today. Can I get you something to drink?" She still loved the work. Helping nervous travelers. Making children laugh. Ensuring everyone arrived safely. Every time a plane took off, she felt that joy, the same joy she'd felt the first time she'd ever flown. The airline eventually created a new position for her, emergency training consultant. She could fly regular routes and also develop safety programs. She trained crews on how to stay calm in emergencies. How to think clearly under pressure, how to work as a team when disaster struck. Her classes were always full. Everyone wanted to learn from Phantom. But in her classes, she was just Sarah. Patient, kind, humble. The most important skill, she would tell her students, isn't technical knowledge. It's the ability to stay human when everything is falling apart. To care about the people you're trying to save. To keep trying when success seems impossible. That's what makes the difference. 5 years after the emergency landing, Sarah was working a routine flight from Los Angeles to Tokyo. A young flight attendant named Michael was on his first international flight. He was nervous, asking lots of questions. "Don't worry," Sarah told him with a warm smile. "You'll do great. Just stay calm and help people. That's all this job really is." "Thanks," Michael said. "I hope I can be as good at this as you are someday." Sarah laughed. "Just be yourself. That's all anyone can ask." The flight took off smoothly. They reached cruising altitude. Everything was peaceful. Sarah walked through the cabin, checking on passengers, refilling drinks, chatting with families. This was her life now. Simple, meaningful, peaceful. She had flown classified missions in combat zones. She had saved 285 lives in an impossible emergency landing. She had earned a legendary call sign that pilots still talked about in reverent tones. But right now, she was just Sarah the flight attendant, making sure an elderly woman had an extra blanket. And she was completely happy. 10 years after the emergency landing, the Aviation Safety Foundation asked Sarah to give a keynote speech at their annual conference. The auditorium was packed with pilots, engineers, and safety experts from around the world. Sarah stood at the podium and looked out at the crowd. "I've been asked to talk about heroism," she began. "About that day when I landed a damaged aircraft and saved almost 300 people. But I want to talk about something else instead." The audience leaned forward. "I want to talk about the danger of assumptions. About how we judge people by their titles instead of their capabilities. About how expertise can be invisible when we're not looking for it." She paused. "On that day, I was dismissed as just a new flight attendant. Someone who needed help with basic tasks, someone who couldn't possibly contribute anything meaningful to a crisis. And you know what? That was my fault. I had hidden my background. I had presented myself as inexperienced. But it was also everyone else's fault for assuming. For deciding that someone with 3 weeks of service couldn't possibly have anything to offer, for judging a book by its cover." She smiled. "The lesson isn't that every new employee is secretly a retired special operations pilot. The lesson is that every person deserves respect. Every person has a story. Every person might surprise you." Captain Torres saved lives that day by setting aside his assumptions. By trusting someone he had every reason to dismiss. By being humble enough to accept help from an unexpected source. That's the real heroism. Not flying skills or technical knowledge. But the courage to admit you need help and the wisdom to accept it from wherever it comes. The audience gave her a standing ovation. Later, a young pilot approached her nervously. "Ms. Chen, Phantom, I just wanted to say that you're my inspiration. I'm studying to be a fighter pilot because of you." Sarah shook his hand warmly. "That's wonderful. But remember, being a great pilot isn't about personal glory. It's about service. It's about bringing everyone home safely. It's about using your skills to help others." "I'll remember that," the young pilot promised. "Good," Sarah said. "And one more thing, never underestimate anyone. The person who seems ordinary might be extraordinary. The person who seems inexperienced might be the most capable person in the room. Stay humble. Stay curious. Stay open to learning from everyone." "Yes, ma'am." Sarah smiled. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a flight to catch. I'm working the red-eye to New York tonight." The young pilot watched in amazement as the legendary Phantom walked away, pulling her flight attendant's suitcase behind her, ready to serve passengers on an overnight flight. And he understood, finally, what true greatness looked like. It looked like service. It looked like humility. It looked like someone who used incredible skills not for personal glory, but to help others in whatever way was needed. It looked like Sarah Chen, retired combat pilot, emergency landing legend, and flight attendant. Just the new girl who turned out to be exactly what everyone needed when everything went wrong. This story is inspired by the idea that people are often more than they appear. The quiet person beside you might have extraordinary skills. The new employee might have decades of hidden experience. The person who seems ordinary might be capable of the extraordinary. The real lesson isn't about hidden heroes. It's about treating everyone with respect, staying humble, and being willing to learn from anyone. Because you never know who might save your life someday.